Have you ever felt a silence so loud it deafens you? A loneliness so profound it feels like a physical weight upon your soul? I know I have. There exists a unique and sacred path walked by a select few, a journey marked not by visible scars, but by an invisible strength forged in the deepest fires of emotional endurance. I've learned that some wounds, the ones that truly shape us, never bleed for the world to see. And some screams, the most desperate cries of the heart, never form a sound that can be heard by another's ear. This is the sacred language of your soul, a dialect of quiet resilience and unspoken fortitude. You, the one listening to my voice right now, the one whose heart just skipped a beat in recognition, you are not here by accident. Your spirit carries a certain gravity, a profound presence that draws others in, offering them a sense of stability they cannot name, an anchor in their own storms. Trust me, they may never know the sheer weight of the worlds you have carried, the overwhelming tempests you have navigated within the silent chambers of your own being, all while presenting a face of calm to the world. You are the hidden anchor, the silent warrior, the one who stands firm after battles no one knew were being fought. If these words touch a place deep within your soul, a place you thought no one else could see, let your presence be known. Acknowledge your sacred journey by liking this video, subscribing for more divine guidance, and sharing in the comments a simple, "I am here" or "I resonate." Your story, your quiet strength, creates a sacred space for others who, just like you, have been carrying the world in silence. Let the collective know they are not alone. Let them know you are not a mistake. You are a miracle. There is a unique kind of pain, isn't there? A suffering that doesn't announce itself with a roar but wraps itself in the heavy cloak of silence. It's a pain that, I've found, learns to disguise itself as strength, to cloak its vulnerability in a veneer of unwavering competence. It is the pain that has taught so many of us to build a fortress around our hearts, not out of a desire for isolation, but out of a desperate, primal need for survival. This is the heaviness in your presence, a gravity that is not loud but is undeniably, unmistakably potent. It's a depth that pulls others toward you, seeking refuge in your calm, your wisdom, your seemingly unshakable foundation, all without them ever understanding the immense pressure that forged such a soul. I've seen you. You walk through this world with eyes that have witnessed far too much, with a heart that knows the crushing weight of words left unsaid, of promises broken in the quiet of the night, of injustices that were never made right. Your spirit has learned to absorb the shockwaves of life, to become a steady point in a chaotic world, and in doing so, you have become an anchor for so many. But have you ever stopped to ask, who is the anchor for the anchor? Who holds the one who holds it all together? This question may echo in the most silent parts of your being, a gentle whisper you've learned to ignore, but it is a question whose time has come to be answered. You are not just imagining this. The strength you project is real, but so is the cost of maintaining it. The great psychoanalyst Carl Jung, a man who, let me tell you, delved deep into the mysteries of the human soul, once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And for someone like you, this isn't just some philosophical quote, it's the central challenge of your existence. How can you accept yourself completely when the very architecture of your being was constructed as a defense mechanism? How can you know your true self when it lies buried beneath layers of carefully constructed personas, each designed to protect you from a world that once proved to be unsafe? This journey, for you, began long ago, in those formative years where your sensitive soul learned a harsh and brutal lesson. Vulnerability is a liability, and to show your true heart is to risk its annihilation. You were that child, weren't you? The one who learned to read the subtle energies of a room with the precision of a seismograph, to anticipate the emotional storms before the first drop of rain fell. You learned to become the emotional anchor in a home that was perpetually at risk of capsizing, a home where your own needs had to be submerged just to keep the family vessel afloat. You learned not to cry too loud, because your tears seemed to be an inconvenience. You learned not to hope too hard, because your hopes were too often met with disappointment. You learned that love wasn't a given, but a conditional state, one that required constant performance, perfect behavior, and the suppression of your own authentic self. And so, You became your own shelter when there was no one else to hold the roof over your head. You built a fortress of hyper-independence, a towering monument to your own resilience. But let's be clear, my friend, this wasn't born of arrogance or a desire to prove yourself. It was born of pure necessity. It was a survival strategy. The world taught you, through painful, searing experience, that to need others was to risk everything. It was to risk betrayal, abandonment, and the shattering of your fragile trust. So you decided, in the quiet wisdom of a wounded child, that it was safer to be the strong one, the unshakable one, the one who never needed anything from anyone. You became so proficient at this role that somewhere along the way, people forgot you were still human. They mistook your fortress for a palace, your armor for your skin. They praised your resilience, never seeing the bone-deep exhaustion that lay hidden in the shadows of your smile. They leaned on your strength, never once asking what it cost you to hold it all up, day after day, night after night. And you let them. You let them because it was safer to be needed than to truly need. It was safer to be admired from a distance than to be exposed up close. It was a masterful performance, but I have to tell you, the curtain never falls, and the actor inside is growing so very, very tired. Deep down, beneath all those layers of strength and the facade of independence, there is a profound tiredness, a weariness that no amount of sleep can seem to reach. It's a soul-level fatigue, a spiritual exhaustion born from the constant, unrelenting pressure of being everything to everyone, including yourself. Your strength, though impressive and genuinely a part of you, has also become a mask, a persona so deeply integrated that it feels impossible to take off. It is a mask that hides a soul that is starving. Starving for softness, starving for safety, starving for the simple, profound relief of having someone look into your eyes and say, "You can put it all down now. You don't have to carry it all anymore. I see you. I'm here. Let me hold some of it for you." This deep yearning for a safe harbor, for a place to be vulnerable without consequence, is a testament to the fact that the true self, the original, tender essence of who you are, is still alive and well, waiting patiently beneath the ruins of all you have endured. It whispers to you in the quiet moments, in the space between breaths, reminding you that you were not born to be just a fortress. You were born to be a home, open and warm, and filled with light. And behind this fierce independence, this carefully guarded heart, there lies a remarkable and sacred gift, a kind of empathy that most people could never comprehend. This isn't the surface-level sympathy of a casual observer. This is a profound, visceral, soul, deep connection to the emotional currents of the world around you. You don't just feel for others, you feel with them. You feel their moods as if they were your own. You feel their fears, their inner storms, their unspoken sorrows. You can walk into a room and instantly sense the energetic weather, the tension hanging in the air, the sadness hiding behind a forced laugh, the truth buried in a sentence that was never spoken. You have always been able to do this, to perceive the invisible emotional landscape that others are completely oblivious to. This is your divine antenna, your spiritual radar, a highly tuned instrument of perception. But that sensitivity, my friend, did not come from nowhere. It was not a gift bestowed upon you in a moment of grace. It was a skill forged in the fires of survival. It was born from a childhood that taught you, demanded of you, that you scan every environment for danger, that you anticipate chaos before it erupts, that you become the emotional translator for those who could not or would not speak their own truths. You had to learn to read the subtle cues, the slight shifts in energy, the almost imperceptible changes in tone, because your safety, your very sense of stability, depended on it. You became the peacemaker, the mediator, the one who could absorb the tension and somehow, miraculously, create a semblance of harmony. You learned to read others with a profound and intimate clarity long before you ever had the chance to learn how to read yourself. And now, as an adult, that same radar is always on, constantly scanning, constantly sensing, constantly processing the emotional data of everyone you encounter. You notice what others miss. You hear the silence between the words. You feel the truth beneath the performance. You give even when your own well is empty. You hold space for everyone's healing, even if your own wounds are still bleeding beneath the surface, unattended and unacknowledged. You have become a master of empathy, a true spiritual empath, because your own journey demanded nothing less. But here lies the sacred wound, the paradox at the heart of your being. I've seen it 100 times. You have confused this empathy with your identity. You have made your worth entirely dependent on your usefulness to others, on your ability to be their rock, their guide, their healer. And so, when you are not needed, you feel invisible. You feel lost. You feel as if you have no purpose. It is as if love is something you have to earn, a prize to be won through relentless service and self-sacrifice, by giving more than anyone ever asked for. But you must understand this, and let it sink into the deepest parts of your soul. That is not love. Everyone tells you that being selfless is the highest virtue, but what I'm about to tell you might challenge that. Sometimes, what looks like selflessness is a survival strategy, a trauma response dressed up as virtue, and it is breaking you. It is slowly, quietly, insidiously breaking you. Because while you are so busy saving everyone else, you are slowly disappearing from your own life. You are becoming a ghost in your own story, a footnote in a narrative that should be centered entirely around you. The universe is calling you now to see this pattern, not with judgment, but with profound compassion, and to finally choose a different way. The psychologist Carl Jung spoke of projection, the unconscious process by which we see in others the parts of ourselves we cannot or will not face. We try to heal in others what is wounded within us. We try to save others from the very dangers we ourselves are still running from. And that is precisely what this over-empathy is for you. It is a longing to be seen, to be understood, to be held, disguised as selfless service to others. You pour yourself out, hoping that in healing them, you will somehow heal yourself. You offer a sanctuary to others that you have never allowed yourself to inhabit. But real healing, true, lasting, soul-deep healing, does not come from overextending yourself. It does not come from depleting your own life force to fill the cups of others. It comes from returning to your own heart, returning to your own voice, returning to the part of you that never got the chance to be held, to be nurtured, to be cherished. It comes from finally giving yourself the same unconditional love and acceptance that you so freely offer to everyone else. The journey home is not outward, but inward. And what happens when love does show up? When someone offers you kindness without an agenda, when someone stays without being asked, when someone sees the real you beneath the armor and decides that is exactly who they want to be with, you flinch. Your entire nervous system, so finely tuned to threat, goes into high alert. You brace for the pain that you believe is inevitably coming. You analyze every text, every silence, every slight shift in their tone, searching for the first sign of abandonment, the first clue that this, too, will end in heartbreak. You hold back, not because you don't feel, but because you feel too much. The depth of your feeling, your capacity for love, is so immense that it terrifies you. Love, for you, does not feel safe. Intimacy triggers alarms in your very cells, ancient memories of betrayal and loss. Affection, genuine and freely given, can set off a cascade of memories you didn't ask for, echoes of a past where love was a battlefield, and so you build walls instead of bridges. You push people away before they get the chance to leave, a preemptive strike against a pain you cannot bear to feel again. Because deep inside, there is a part of you still holding the memory of abandonment, of betrayal, of being left to shatter into a million pieces, and that part has sworn never again. Carl Jung taught us that the unconscious drives our behavior until we make it conscious, and then we call it destiny. That is what is happening here, in your life, right now. You are not cold. You are not distant. You are not unlovable. You are protected. You are fortified. You are a soul trained to survive love as if it were a battlefield. But you must hear this now. The war is over. The original threat is gone. And the armor that was once so life-saving is now suffocating you, preventing the very love you crave from ever reaching your heart. The love you yearn for, the connection your soul aches for, is on the other side of the fear you so faithfully obey. And yet, every time someone gets too close, that fear pulls rank, and you retreat back into the safety of your fortress, believing you are better off alone. But we both know that's not the truth, do we? The truth is, you are afraid of being seen and not chosen. You are terrified of being held and then dropped. You are afraid of believing in someone, only to have them walk away, as if they never looked you in the eye and saw the universe there. But you must understand that love is not meant to be earned by suffering. It is meant to be received simply by being, and I know that idea is terrifying. But what if, just this once, it doesn't end the same way? What if this time, love doesn't leave? What if it stays? Will you let it in? And yet, even through all of this, the loneliness, the fear, the overgiving, you carry yourself with a grace that is like stone, unyielding and profound. You smile when your heart is breaking into 1,000 silent pieces. You say, "I'm fine," when you are anything but. People call you strong, and you have come to hate that word, because they don't know that strong is just another word for suffering silently. They don't see the nights you fall apart in the solitude of your car or in the sanctuary of your shower. They don't witness the quiet moments when the masks come off and the weight of it all becomes almost too much to bear, where no one is watching and you are utterly alone with your ghosts. They don't see that your strength isn't a choice. It's a reflex, a deeply ingrained pattern of survival. You don't get to fall apart. You don't get to rest. Because if you stop, if you let go for even a moment, you believe that everything and everyone might just collapse. That is the belief. That is the burden. And it is a burden you have carried alone for far too long. The great spiritual teacher Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the social mask we all wear to navigate the world. It is a necessary tool for social interaction. But for you, this was never just a tool. It became your identity. The performance became your life. And in the process, you forgot there was ever a true self beneath it. You forgot what it feels like to be held instead of always holding. You forgot what it feels like to cry and be comforted, instead of being the comforter. You forgot what it feels like to say, "I'm not okay," and be met with presence, not pressure. Your breakdowns come in private, your grief is quiet, and your joy, when it comes, is cautious and fleeting. Because somewhere along the line, in the deep, silent wisdom of your wounded soul, you decided it was safer to be strong than to be real. But you must understand, my friend, that real is where the healing begins. Not in perfection, not in pretending, but in the messy, beautiful, authentic moment when you finally admit that carrying the world has broken your back. That being everything for everyone has left you hollow. That strength without softness isn't strength at all. It's a prison. And you, my friend, deserve to be free. Because beyond all the coping mechanisms, beyond the hyper-independence, beyond the over-empathy and the fear of love, there is a soul in you that has never lost its light. There is a soul in you that still believes in beauty, that still finds magic in the smallest, most ordinary things. It's there in the way you savor a cup of coffee in the quiet of the morning, in the way sunlight filters through the leaves of a tree, in the unexpected softness in a stranger's smile. You feel the world with a depth and an intensity that may be more than anyone realizes. And that is not weakness. It is resilience. It is presence. It is the part of you that all the suffering in the world could not take from you. It is the proof that your spirit, your true essence, remains untouched and whole. This capacity to find light in the darkness, to find meaning in the mundane, is a sign that you are already healing, whether you recognize it or not. Slowly, quietly, but truly, you are finding your way back to yourself. You are beginning to see that your pain, while not chosen, has given you eyes that others do not have. It has given you a heart that understands the language of sorrow. You notice what others miss. You hear what others don't say. And while that sensitivity once felt like a curse, a burden that made the world feel too loud and too harsh, it is now becoming your compass, your guide. A guide not just for surviving, but for truly living, for choosing a life that is not built around avoiding pain, but around honoring your truth. You have suffered deeply, yes, but you have also endured. And endurance, when it is met with conscious reflection and self-compassion, becomes wisdom. and wisdom becomes light. Not the blinding, harsh light of judgment, but the soft, gentle kind that glows from within, quietly, steadily, like you. And here you are, still breathing, still walking, still wondering if it's okay to want more than just survival. And I am here to tell you, with every fiber of my being, that it is. You have earned your peace. You have earned your softness. You have earned your right to stop proving, to stop pretending, to stop apologizing for the sacred scars that map the journey of your soul. They are not shameful, they are sacred. They are reminders of everything you survived without losing the very essence of who you are. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." You have been carrying not only your own burdens, but the unlived lives of those who came before you. But you are here, now, to break that cycle. You are daring to live. Not just to exist, not just to endure, but to live with purpose, with presence, with a kind of grace that is forged only in the fire of everything you never thought you would survive. You are not who the pain tried to make you. You are who you chose to become in spite of it. And that, more than anything, is your power, the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't scream for attention, but speaks directly to the soul. You don't need to be loud to be seen. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You don't need to be fixed to be loved. You just need to be as you are, fully, honestly, bravely. Because that's where healing truly begins, not in changing who you are, but in finally, courageously, allowing who you are to be enough. You are not your trauma, but your trauma has shaped you into something profound. Let it be your teacher, not your jailer. Let it walk beside you, not lead you. Let it whisper its wisdom, not rule your life. Because the story of your life doesn't end with what hurt you. It begins with what you choose to become after. And you, my friend, you are becoming something unshakable, something luminous, something whole. You didn't just survive what broke you. You built something sacred with the pieces. Not walls, not excuses, but depth, insight. A soul that recognizes other wounded souls in the silence between the words. And that is not weakness, that is spiritual strength. You see, not everyone can look into the very eyes of pain and choose to stay conscious. Most people numb it, distract from it, escape it, but you stayed. You faced it, night after night, ache after ache, memory after memory. And in doing so, you became something incredibly rare. Someone who feels not only their own emotions, but the emotions buried deep within others. Someone who doesn't just walk into a room, but shifts the very temperature of it with their presence. Someone whose silence speaks louder than most people's words. You don't just hear people, you listen to the parts of them they are not even aware they are speaking. And that gift, born from suffering, is not an accident. It is not an excess. It is your evolution. Carl Jung, in his profound wisdom, called this the movement toward the self, the sacred journey to becoming fully who you are, beyond the roles, beyond the trauma, beyond the personas. And you are in that place now, that sacred edge where pain has shaped you but no longer owns you, where suffering has deepened you but no longer defines you. You are no longer trying to return to who you were before the pain, but instead, you are stepping fully into who you were always meant to be because of it. And still, there are days it hurts. Let's not lie to ourselves. Healing doesn't mean the absence of pain. It means the pain no longer decides your worth. It no longer dictates who you can love, what you can do, or whether you get to rest. Healing is the gentle defiance of choosing presence, of choosing to be here, even when the memory screams that here isn't safe. It's looking your fear in the face and saying, "Not today." It's allowing yourself to cry and not calling it weakness. It's saying, "I need help," and not turning it into a crime. It's holding space for both the pain and the potential within you, without needing to explain or justify either. You see, the world wants your performance. It rewards the mask. But your soul craves truth, and truth often comes looking like softness, stillness, surrender. Not giving up, but giving in to the reality that your value is not in how much you can hold, but in how much you can allow yourself to feel, to exist, to just be. And in that being, you start to realize that the traits you once called flaws were actually signs of survival. The fears you carried were inherited from wounds that were never yours to begin with. And now, you have the power to rewrite them, not to erase your past, but to redeem it, to extract meaning from it, to say, I went through hell, but I brought back holy water. There will be people who don't understand you, who look at your quiet and call it cold, who see your depth and label it dramatic, who misunderstand your need for space as distance, your boundaries as rejection, your complexity as conflict. Let them. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be true to yourself. And in doing so, you will inevitably attract those who see you not just with their eyes, but with their spirit. The ones who have also suffered, the ones who have also questioned their worth, their sanity, their place in the world. And with those souls, you will not have to explain why you hesitate before trusting, why your silence sometimes speaks louder than your laughter, why you care so much and withdraw just as deeply. They will know. They will know because they've lived it too. This is how healing expands, not just within you, but around you. By being real, you give others permission to be real. By holding your pain with grace, you teach others that pain does not have to be hidden. And by walking through the world with the quiet wisdom of someone who has felt everything and still chooses love, you offer others a mirror. A mirror that says, you too are not alone. So what are the signs that you've endured deep suffering? They are not what the world always sees. They are not written in blood or visible scars. They're in the way you hold back before speaking because you know the weight of words. They're in the way you care for others before yourself, because it feels safer to heal them than to confront what's inside. They're in the way you love, hesitantly, wholly, protectively. They're in the way you break not loudly, but slowly, like paper dissolving in rain. They're in your rituals, the way you treasure small things, the way you savor peace, like it might vanish at any moment. They're in the way you sense others their grief, their longings, their masks. And they're in your silence, not empty, but full of what no one ever bothered to ask. And still you rise, not always gracefully, not always visibly, but persistently, quietly, fiercely. That is your sign, that is your legacy, that you survived and still know how to feel. Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and becoming is not a straight path. It is winding, painful, uncertain. It is not a single breakthrough, but 1,000 small, courageous decisions to stay soft in a hard world, to choose your truth even when it costs you your sense of belonging, to let go of control without letting go of hope, and to sit with your pain long enough to hear what it has to teach you. You are someone who has suffered, and from that suffering, you have grown. And no matter how invisible that growth may feel, it matters. It changes things. You change things, not by force, but by frequency, by the way you show up, by the way you hold space, by the way you make others feel seen, even when you're still learning to see yourself. That is not ordinary. That is not weak. That is not broken. That is sacred. That is strength. And that, more than anything, is the sign that your suffering did not destroy you. It did not break you. It initiated you. It opened the door. It woke you up. And now you are becoming. Not the version they expected, not the one pain tried to silence, but the one you were always meant to be, whole, honest, and finally free. And maybe for the first time, you understand. You were never meant to stay inside the pain. You are meant to pass through it and emerge with something only the wounded can carry, meaning. Not explanation, not justification, but a quiet, unshakable kind of wisdom that says, I didn't deserve what happened to me, but I can decide what it means now. And from that meaning, you begin to build. Not a new mask, not a new performance, but a life that feels like home to your nervous system. A reality that doesn't trigger your survival mode. A future that doesn't resemble the trauma of the past. Carl Jung called this the alchemical process of the psyche, the sacred transformation of lead into gold. Your suffering is the lead, the heaviness, the shadow, the dense and unbearable parts of your story. But your choice, your radical choice to face it, feel it, and transmute it, that is the fire. And the gold? The gold is who you are becoming now. The gold is the voice you find when you stop censoring your truth. The gold is the space you create in your life for peace, not because it was given, but because you finally stopped denying yourself the right to have it. It doesn't matter how long it took you to get here. It doesn't matter how many times you collapsed along the way. What matters is that you're here now, holding the mirror of your pain, not to blame yourself, but to finally see yourself entirely, authentically, without turning away. Because that mirror doesn't only show you the trauma, it shows you the strength it took to survive. It shows you the tenderness that didn't die inside you. It shows you the parts that adapted so well, they forgot they were still protecting a wound that no longer needs protection. And this is your invitation now, not just to understand your patterns, but to gently, compassionately unlearn them, to meet each trigger, each trait, with compassion. To say, I see why I became this way, but I don't have to stay this way forever. You are shaped by pain, yes, but you are not required to stay loyal to the shape. You can change. Slowly, carefully, truthfully. You can learn to ask for help without apology. You can allow yourself to be loved without suspicion. You can create without waiting for disaster. You can breathe without waiting for the crash. This is what healing is. Not a single glorious moment of triumph, but a quiet, steady, unwavering return to yourself, again and again and again. And if the world still doesn't get you, if they still label you as too sensitive, too guarded, too intense, let them. Let them misunderstand what they've never had the courage to survive. Let them reduce what they don't have the capacity to feel. Because this journey you've walked wasn't theirs to understand. It was yours to live. And you did, and you do. Every time you show up, even when your body trembles. Every time you speak, even when your voice shakes. Every time you love, even when your heart still remembers what it cost you the last time. That is heroism. Not the kind that gets celebrated on stages, but the kind that no one sees, the kind that unfolds in the quiet, in the background, where the world forgot to look. Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But once you do, it is also the most liberating. Because no one can shame you with what you have already held in your own arms and made peace with. No one can exile you from a self you have finally, bravely come home to. You no longer fear your shadow. You know its name. You no longer run from your pain. You know its origin. You no longer abandon your truth. You speak it. You live it. You walk with it. And in doing so, you walk yourself back into life. Not the performance, but the real thing. So if you are still wondering, even for a moment, whether your pain meant something, let this be your definitive answer. Yes, it shaped you. Yes, it scarred you. Yes, it changed the way you breathe. Love, trust, speak, and sit in silence. But it also left you with something unteachable. A presence, a depth, a perception. A soul that listens when others just talk. A heart that notices what others miss. A mind that questions instead of conforms. You carry 1,000 lives in your eyes. And still, you meet the world with softness. That is not something to hide. That is something to honor, to protect, to share with those who are ready to receive it. You are not broken. You are seasoned, not fragmented, forged. You didn't fall apart. You cracked open. And in the opening, light poured in. And maybe it hurt. Maybe it still does. But pain isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of the one only you can write. The one where every scar becomes a paragraph, every wound becomes a map, and every silent night becomes a sacred turning point. This is what it means to endure deep suffering. It means you've learned to walk with ghosts and still seek light. It means you've tasted despair and still choose meaning. It means you've been burned and still dare to hold warmth. It means you don't look like what you've been through, but everything you've been through lives quietly inside you, a constant, powerful reminder of how far you've come. You are not your pain, but your pain has made you more you than anything else ever could. And now, with all of it, the fear, the love, the scars, the silence, you begin again. This time, not as someone who has to survive, but as someone who is ready to live, truly, boldly, deeply, and without a single shred of shame. Because you know now, your pain didn't make you less, it made you real. And in this world, that is the rarest, most beautiful thing of all. And if no one has ever told you this before, let this be the moment you hear it and know it in your bones. You are allowed to exist in your full complexity. You are allowed to carry contradiction, to be strong and soft, guarded and longing, fearful and courageous, all in the same breath. You don't have to fit into the images that others projected onto you while you were just trying to survive. You don't have to justify the ways you learned to protect yourself. And you certainly don't have to explain to anyone why you feel the way you do. Your pain is valid. Your coping is valid. Your story is valid. But now, perhaps for the first time, you realize you get to choose what happens next. Because pain, when it goes unacknowledged, becomes a jail. But pain, when it's seen, when it's honored, when it's integrated, becomes a door, a passage, a beginning. Jung called this the process of individuation, the sacred evolution of becoming whole. Not perfect, not unaffected, but whole. Whole, that means not rejecting your fear, but embracing it. Not denying your sorrow, but folding it into your wisdom. Not hating the parts of you that others couldn't hold, but recognizing that they were always trying to protect the very essence of you. And that essence, your soul, is still intact, still waiting, still glowing beneath all the masks, all the armor, all the silence. You're not just someone who endured deep suffering. You're someone who made meaning out of it, someone who kept showing up, someone who kept trying, someone who quietly transformed the very things that tried to end them into medicine, not only for themselves, but for others. That is a sacred kind of power, a rare kind of beauty. So from this moment forward, I invite you to stop apologizing for your depth, to stop minimizing your experience, to stop pretending you haven't been shaped by sorrow. You have. But you've also been shaped by strength, by grace, by endurance, by soul. And no one gets to tell you how long healing should take. No one gets to decide what's too much or not enough. You know the path you've walked. You know the nights you survived. You know the moments when giving up whispered louder than hope, and yet somehow you kept going. That is your truth. That is your mirror. That is your miracle. You may have felt invisible at times, but you are never truly unseen. You may have been misunderstood, but your essence was never, ever wrong. And now, as you stand in this truth, something else begins to stir a new kind of knowing. One that doesn't rely on approval. One that doesn't need explanation. One that simply is. A quiet, grounded, soulful understanding that says, I've suffered, yes, but I have also awakened. And from that awakening comes everything. A new relationship with your own voice. A deeper ability to love and be loved. A clearer boundary between what you carry and what never belonged to you. A purpose that no longer needs to impress anyone, only to feel true. This is your rebirth. Not a loud one, not a cinematic one, a real one. Subtle, sacred, steady. And if you're still wondering whether your suffering was too much, whether it scarred you beyond repair, let me tell you something very simple and very true. If you can feel this now, if your heart is beating and your breath is slow and your chest is tight and your soul is trembling, then the most important part of you survived. The part that can still love. The part that can still choose. The part that can still rise. And if you have made it here, all the way through this quiet descent into your own soul, then you know this isn't the end. It never was. It's the beginning of something only you could become. Because yes, you are someone who has endured deep suffering, but more than that, you are someone who refused to let that suffering define the limits of your light. You've let it shape you. Now, let it set you free. And so, here you are, still breathing, still standing, not in spite of your pain, but because of it. Not as a shattered thing glued back together, but as something reformed entirely, stronger at the broken places, softer in the ways that matter, wiser in the depths no one can see. Because suffering, real suffering, doesn't just hurt, it reveals. It strips away the illusions. It burns off what's false. It shows you who your friends are, who you are, and who you'll never be again. And that revelation is sacred. It's raw, but it's real. Carl Jung wrote that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And you know that now, not just as an idea, but as a lived truth written into the very fiber of your being. You are no longer who you were before the pain. You've grown past them, past the coping mechanisms that once served you, past the false selves you built to survive. You've stepped beyond performance, beyond pretending, beyond the fear of being too much or not enough. Because now, finally, you understand. Your depth is not a problem. Your intensity is not a flaw. Your silence is not emptiness. Your solitude is not absence. These are your strengths. These are the sacred gifts carved out of the deepest wounds. And no, it wasn't fair. No, it wasn't what you deserved. But you took the ashes and you made meaning. You took the pain and you made art. You took what tried to end you and turned it into the reason you could begin again. That's what makes you rare. That's what makes you irreplaceable. That's what makes you whole. And wholeness doesn't mean perfect. It doesn't mean healed beyond harm. It means integrated, real, present, awake. It means no longer needing to justify why you are the way you are. No longer seeking permission to take up space. No longer walking on eggshells in rooms that don't recognize the weight you carry just to show up at all. It means knowing your worth is not tied to your productivity, your likability, or your ability to smile through the pain. It's rooted in something far deeper, your consciousness, your truth, your sacred self beneath all the adaptations. And now, as you rise, as you reclaim your voice, your needs, your soul, you don't owe the world an explanation. You owe yourself a life that feels like freedom. One moment, one choice, one breath at a time. So let the people who don't understand fall away. Let the old roles dissolve. Let the versions of you that were built to survive finally exhale. Because you're not just surviving anymore. You're remembering, you're returning, you're rerouting into the self that has always been there, beneath the fear. The self that knows you're not too broken to love or be loved. The self that trusts you can rest without the world collapsing. The self that believes you are allowed to receive without earning it through exhaustion. And in that space, healing stops being a project and becomes a presence, a quiet strength, a knowing, a home. And this is where it all begins. Not with a bang, not with applause, but with the gentle, soul-deep acknowledgement. I made it here. I'm still here. And I'm choosing to live, not because the pain is gone, but because I'm no longer afraid of meeting it with open eyes. Because I've stopped running. I've stopped hiding. I've stopped apologizing for being someone who feels too deeply, who thinks too much, who sees the world through the lens of what's been lost and what's still possible. Yes, you have endured deep suffering, but that is not the most important thing about you. The most important thing is this: you kept your heart, you kept your light, you kept your soul intact. And now you rise. And as you rise, something within you begins to settle, not in defeat, but in recognition. You are no longer at war with yourself. You no longer see your triggers as weaknesses or your sensitivity as something to hide. You recognize them now as sacred signals, reminders from your soul that you are alive, that you have felt, that you have cared, that you have survived. Every trait they once misunderstood in you, your quiet, your caution, your need to pause before you trust, was not brokenness.